Now, progressive overload, it's a little bit like Valentine's Day. Now, hear me out. They're both important. You know you should do something, but you're not really sure what to do. And if you don't do anything, you know you're kind of fucked. Well, not actually, but you're metaphorically. Plus, if you feel like you have to ask what to do, kind of ruins the mood a little bit, doesn't it? And there's always some guy in the background yelling, harder than last time, right? So here are 6 progressive overload mistakes that I have seen and also done myself many times before. The first one, they don't do it. So you see the guy in the gym, and a year ago he was doing a certain weight, and right now he's doing the same weight, and a year from now he's going to be doing the same weight, and he's like, yeah, dude, I'm doing hypertrophy training, 8 to 12, 20-pound dumbbells, that's my weight, that's the weight that I use, and you're like, 25s? No, that would break, no, 20s. 20s is my weight. And weight training is not really supposed to feel entirely comfortable. There shouldn't be pain, you should avoid that, but comfort is something that's not really going to be there. It should be hard, it should be strenuous, it should be uncomfortable. When I hear people say stuff like, the bar doesn't feel entirely comfortable on my back when I unrack it in squats, like once I get to 3 plates, it's a little bit uncomfortable. Why would it feel comfortable? It's 300 plus pounds. That's not going to feel comfortable for a long time, maybe even ever. And your reps might drop off. If you go from, say, 100 pounds in the incline dumbbell bench press, and now you're using 110, yeah, you might only get 3, 4, 5 reps the first time you do it. And that's not, like, strictly speaking, the best for hypertrophy, but you've got your foot in the door. Again, Valentine's Day. You've got your foot in the door, and now you can sweet talk the 110-pound dumbbells and maybe get more reps in the future. And that's really what it's all about, right? And I would almost rather have someone shoot their shot at that heavier weight just to see how it feels and how it goes.
And perhaps play a little game called Just a Tip. Just for a second, just to see how it feels.
Rather than always using the same weight. Because sometimes trying that heavier weight will drag up the lighter weights as well. So just trying that heavier weight, it brings up your 8 rep max, your 12 rep max, your 15, your 20, because you are now used to that heavier load. So yeah, load management, pretty... Number 2, they have overly optimistic expectations. Now, as a general rule of thumb, from beginner to intermediate to advanced to elite, your progress will slow down over time, assuming you're doing everything pretty well. I think that if you optimize the process and if you get better at getting better, you can maybe make it a little bit more linear. But in general, progress will slow down. That's sort of just biology. So people go from being a beginner to intermediate, and they expect progress to be the same as when they were getting their newbie gains. That's just not going to happen. And when you're more advanced, like I am, progress is going to be even slower. I changed gyms, and the dumbbells went from 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30 kilos to 20, 22 and a half, 25, 27 and a half, 30. So very similar amounts. And the 24 versus the 25 dumbbells, big difference. I mean, that was probably 6 months of progress right there. Now, someone might think, oh, no, it's the same, 24, 25. Oh, it's the same. Not the same.
Same, but different.
That is a long amount of progression when you're advanced. And I'll put my progression up on the screen for the incline dumbbell curl. 24 kilos for 3 reps, 4, 5, 6 reps. Then the 25 kilos for 7 reps and 8 reps over the course of 3 years. So over 3 years, 5 reps and 1 kilo. I think a lot of people would be very disappointed by that rate of progression, especially if you looked at it month by month. And so that's what? Probably 1 rep every 6, 5, 4 months, somewhere in there. And so when people are like, yeah, bro, take the 30 kilo dumbbells next week, I'm like, all right, well, if only. And a lot of advanced lifters won't even share their progress because it makes them look bad. It makes them look like they don't know what they're doing, like they're doing something wrong. But that's not the case. That's just where they are on that curve. And over the past 2 years, across multiple bulks and cuts, I've put on 1/2 inch on my arms, couple inches on my chest, and a little over 1 inch on my thighs. So yeah, when you're more advanced, progress is going to be just much slower. Still visible, but you just can't have the same expectations as when you were a beginner. And I think it can help to zoom out. If I tell someone, hey, would you be happy with 3 inches on your arms in 3 years? Most people would be like, hell yeah, that's lock me in, that's awesome. What about 1 inch in 1 year? Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah. What about half an inch in half a year? I start to think a little bit more. What about 1/4 of an inch in 3 months? Yeah, I don't know. What about 1/8 of an inch in a month and a half? You can't even see 1/8 of an inch, right? And so when you get down to the nitty gritty of making decisions, often you have to accept the fact that progress is going to be slow and perhaps in some cases barely even visible. Number 3, they quit too early, or they program hop, or they exercise swap. They say, oh, I'm plateaued. But in terms of the numbers, you might be plateaued when progress is actually happening under the surface. I've done this many times where on paper, according to the training log, I wasn't making any progress. But in the gym, because I was observant, I knew things were headed in the right direction. Maybe the reps were getting slightly faster at the very end. So I got the same number of reps, but instead of like a 7-second grinder at the end, it was like a 5-second grinder. Then the next session, it was a 4-second grinder, and I even attempted the next rep, but I failed. Then the next time, it was even faster for the last rep, and then I attempted the rep, and I almost got it, but I didn't quite get it. On paper, those are all the same thing. Those are all the same numbers of reps, but in terms of performance, that is actually a very, very good sign. And so I'm not saying you have to write this in your training log. I don't. But you can think back to last time. You have this capacity to say, okay, well, yeah, I'm getting a little bit better every single session. And on pretty much any movement, there are some fast gains to be had at the very beginning of introducing that movement. So when I first introduced incline dumbbell curls, on this weight, I went from 3 reps to 4 reps in a month, and 4 reps to 5 reps with 2 more months after that. And I don't really recommend 3s and 4s and 5s, but not the end of the world.
Just a tip.
But progress slowed down after that. So when you first introduce a movement, of course, progress is going to be more rapid, because even if a movement is a machine, or if it's an isolation, or it's more stable, there is still some amount of neurological adaptation. Plus, it's easier when you have a target. I don't hear this talked about very much, but the first time you do a movement, you don't really know what your performance should be. And so I think just because you don't have that target, you aren't pushing quite as hard as you can. But now you know, oh, my PR is 4 reps, I want to get 5 reps. And so now you have a goal, and it allows you to push even harder. When someone breaks a world record, usually they know what the record is, and they have something to shoot for. Whereas the guy who used to hold the record, then if you put him in the same race, maybe he'd be even faster because he has that competition. And so you are standing on the shoulders of giants, and those giants are you in the past represented by your training log. By the way, this video is sponsored by Boostcamp. Now, if you're not tracking your training, how do you know if you're progressive overloading? You don't. It's not a trick question, you just don't. And so having something like Boostcamp in your back pocket with you in the gym to track and measure and manage your progress is an absolute game changer. And if you're not keeping a training log, and I'm always astonished by how many people are not, start. Start today, do it. It's important. How do you know if you're progressing if you're not writing it down? Don't trust your memory. My memory sucks. Your memory probably sucks almost as much. And so have a way to track your progress. It doesn't have to be Boostcamp. You could write it in an Excel spreadsheet or something, but having something with you like Boostcamp is probably the best possible option, unless you're a caveman or something. Don't be a caveman. It's not a good thing to be when you're trying to optimize your training. So once again, thank you to Boostcamp for sponsoring this video. And so it's easy to get this fast sense of progress, then things slow down a lot, you think you've plateaued, but that's when you're really building muscle. Because you were doing neurological, skill-based expectation stuff in the beginning, and now you're into the real muscle building bullshit. But that's exactly when most people stop. Like, oh, I got a muscle confusion, because you want that quick dopamine hit, because you lack the patience to have faith and keep going. So just because progress has slowed down a lot that doesn't mean you immediately need to switch out an exercise. Same thing with program hopping. It's something I did all the time in the past. I would read a T Nation article, be like, oh yeah, I'm going to do small off the next 3 weeks, skip the introductory phase and go right for the meat of the program. No point, because you get this big bump in performance on your squat, and then you stop squatting and it goes right back down, and you didn't actually really do very much at all. I've been on the same split for like 3 or 4 years now. Same split. It's in my books if you really want to know. And I think that has been something that has helped me a lot because I've had the structure that I can work around and have some consistency from in terms of reps, sets, exercise selection. And I do think that it's very, very important. And if you're doing a new program every 6, 8 weeks, let alone every 2, 3, 4 weeks, that is really going to be to your detriment. Number 4, they expect things to be linear. Now, I already talked about the diminishing returns aspect of things, which is not exactly a line, but even more than that, there's going to be fluctuations in performance along that curved line. And so you're going to have good days, you're going to have average days, you're going to have bad days. When you're a beginner, your average days can actually be PR worthy. Because you're progressing so quickly, an average day, this day, might be better than a good day the week before, and so you're still seeing progress. When you're in an intermediate, your average days probably won't be as good as your good days before. And so yeah, you might have days when you plateau, or even days when you go back down. And when you're advanced, that fluctuation in performance, even if it's like 5% either way, that might be so much that it masks like a year of progress. So you might have a bad day and be like, crap, I was using these weights a year ago. And it's true, but on the good days, you're still making progress. So try to compare your good days to your good days, your average days to your average days, and your bad days to your bad days. If your bad days are getting better, that is progress. We like to think of personal bests. What about personal worsts? What about your minimum expectation of going into the gym? If you're seeing that improve over time, that's still progress. And so I give myself a range of performance that I would expect. So let's say incline dumbbell bench press, 100 pounds, 9 reps would be a new personal best. Of course, you can't be unhappy with that. Doesn't happen that often. 8 reps would equal personal best. I would also be happy with that. 7 reps, I would even still be okay with. 6 reps is where I'm like, yeah, that's not a great sign. And if I get 5 reps on the first set when I'm relatively fresh, that would be a big red flag. And if I didn't have some kind of explanation for it, like sleep or nutrition or something else, then I would have to think things through, especially if it happened more than 1 week in a row. That would be, sort of a time to pause and consider. Number 5, this is a 2-parter, and I'm going to trust you guys because these 2 things are headed in opposing directions, and so you're going to have to hold 2 seemingly opposite ideas in your mind at the same time. 5A, they allow their form to change. 5B, they don't allow form breakdown. 5A, a mistake is that they allow their form to change. And so let's say they're doing a seated dumbbell shoulder press. Now they used to use form like this, all the way up, all the way down, very controlled, etc. Looks fantastic. But then a few weeks later, they're doing like this shit, right? Where they're leaning back a lot, maybe it's half repping. Oh, and now their gym partner's involved, and so you see them doing this shit, where it's like a crappy triceps extension, something like that. Oh, but they put on so much weight. Yeah, but if you went back to the old form, maybe you've gotten better, but maybe you haven't gotten better. So in that case, I think especially on pushing, pressing movements, squatting movements, if you're squatting higher and higher, I think that you're kind of kidding yourself. And so allowing your form to change in that way can absolutely be counterproductive because you're not even getting better stimulus because you're avoiding that lengthened position, the most difficult part of the range of motion. And so you're kind of just ego lifting at this point. And I say ego lifting not just because it's more weight, because it's also getting less out of the set. It's like someone says, oh, I deadlift 500, but my back is not getting any bigger. And then I see their deadlift and it's sumo all the way out to the side with the whippy bar and the figure 8 straps with the little tippies. They just got the little, not even holding onto the bar, it's just all strap and the tippies of the tippy tip fingers. And tippy, that's fun. And I'm like, well, why would this work your back? Well, it's a deadlift. Well, it is a deadlift, but it's not the deadlift that's actually going to help you. Okay, what do you do on RDLs for a set of 10 to 12 with good form and keeping everything strict with a good range of motion all the way down to the floor? And they're like, oh yeah, I don't do that. Okay. However, 5B, they don't allow any deviation in form. And you see these guys, especially on rows, lateral raises, some curls, where they are just so robotic. The rows just robotic, man. Nothing is moving except for the upper arm. And if someone is more advanced, fair enough, they've settled on that form. Not going to criticize. But if someone is a beginner and their rowing looks super, super strict, yeah, I would say maybe opening things up a little bit, allowing a little bit more oomph could be a way to progress. That is a form of progression. Now, does this allow you to exactly compare to your previous form? No. Especially on rows, I think, yeah, you're going to be much stronger with even a little bit of oomph. But this is a way to sometimes get used to heavier loads. And I guess there's a 5C as well, where you could be getting stricter over time as well. For me, on something like a dumbbell incline bench press, for 40 kilos over the past almost 4 years, I've gone from 6 reps to 12 reps. It's not a lot in terms of increases, but my technique is much stricter, deeper, more controlled, less flared out, and so overall I'm using a lot more chest, which is what I want to target. So sometimes you don't need to strip all the weight off the bar to change your technique. You can kind of change it gradually as you see fit over the course of many months and many years. That is still sort of progressive overload, even if you don't get stronger, if you're having more difficult technique. If you turn your dumbbell incline bench press slowly into like a dumbbell power fly, that is going to be more stress on the chest for sure. Number 6, they think it has to be weight. So they think progressive overload has to be weight on the bar. And I think if you're a beginner, yeah, probably. Again, you're progressing faster, and so yeah, you should be getting stronger as well. When you're more advanced, you might take the same weight for half a year, maybe even 2 or 3 years, and just increase the number of reps that you are getting. For example, on my RDL with 150 kilos or 330 pounds, in 2018, I was getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 reps. I don't really recommend this. Probably pretty stupid. I don't think a 1, 2, 3, 4 rep max or even a 5 rep max makes sense in RDLs. In 2019, I got 6 reps. 2021, I got 8, 9 reps. 2023, I got 10, 12 reps. And then 2024, so far, I've gotten 13 reps. So I've gotten 12 more reps over the course of about 6 years. So yeah, 2 reps per year, 1 rep every 6 months. And I'll do my RDL sometimes up to 30 reps. And so with 13 to 30 reps, that's many years, most likely, worth of progression. So it doesn't necessarily need to be weight on the bar, especially when you're more advanced. Now, number 7, I'll toss in a bonus one. Beware of over-specialization if your goal is hypertrophy. Yes, strength and size are going to be correlated, but if you get that strength through ultra-specific programming, you decide to start squatting up to a max every day, like Bulgarian-style stuff, yeah, your max, if you stay in one piece, is going to go up quite a bit. But you might be very underwhelmed, 1, with the size gains, and 2, with the amount of strength that sticks around. Some of it probably will, but if you stop squatting every day, be prepared for your max to fall down probably pretty close to what it was. So you probably have 10, 20, maybe 30%, perhaps even more on technical lifts that you have to gain from a very, very specialized routine, but you have to sacrifice other areas of lifting.
What? But you can't do this to me.
I started this company. You know how much I sacrificed?
It won't really be good for long-term growth, and this is kind of a card that you want to pull if you want to maximize a certain lift. But if that's not really your goal, I would beware of getting progressive overload from specialization because it's kind of just temporary in a lot of cases. And Atlas Power Shrugged actually did a good video on this pretty recently called Strength versus Peaking and the No Practice PR. So what can you hit without a specialization phase, without dumping a ton of resources into really building up one lift? Because that is real progress in my opinion. When you can hit a PR without really trying, in so to speak. Now, in terms of the nitty-gritty, how many sets, how many reps, when to add reps and sets, and when to add weight, and when to swap exercises in or out, or how many exercises to have in your rotation, how aggressive to be with progression, or how conservative to be, etc., I would honestly just check out my book. It's all in there, and it will help you a lot. That's everything that I've learned over the past 5 years or so since the publication of my first book. So I think that will be very useful in terms of if you're intermediate or advanced and getting the most from your training. If you're a beginner, you haven't even hit plateaus yet, ideally, and so I would just go for my first book, Sweat. Thank you also for the support, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.